Okay, well, we are about to start. Um, my name is Julie. I am one of the office managers here at Foundations Wellness Coaching, and I just wanted to welcome you guys to the Beating Lyme webinar hosted by Foundations Wellness. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Typically, Justine hosts this, but she was unable to do that today. Um, if you missed part 1 or 2 of the webinar, that's okay. We're gonna be sending out a link to the videos. What I am gonna do, though, is I'm gonna ask everybody to just go ahead and click mute on your microphones for the Zoom. And I'm just gonna kinda look and see here. That'll just really cut down on any background noise. Awesome. And this video is being recorded, so you can share it in the future. We're going to send out an email with all of that. Also, if you have any questions during the webinar, please just send those questions to Lisa in the chat. She'll be taking time to answer those at the end of the presentation. And yeah, we just want to, like I said, make sure that our mics stay muted so we don't interrupt the presentation. Before we jump in, I am going to read just a brief disclaimer. Let's see here. Yeah, just a brief disclaimer about, just in general. So this webinar is not intended to serve as medical advice. Please see your medical doctor to treat or cure any medical condition. At Foundations Wellness Coaching, we help you use natural interventions to help your body heal itself. I also want to take just a minute to introduce our lovely speaker, Lisa, tonight. And Lisa, I have the pleasure of working with Lisa. She's wonderful. I've known her for a while. Lisa Schumacher, she is an RN. She's also a certified Lyme practitioner at Foundations Wellness Coaching. She's been through a lot of extensive trainings, including an uprooting Lyme mentorship with Hilary Thing. Hilary Thing is she created the uprooting Lyme. She's also a part of ILADS, which is the International Lyme and Associated Disease Society, and ICI, which is the International Society for Environmentally Acquired Illness. That's a mouthful. But all of those credentials, they really do serve her. They really do speak a lot about Lisa and her knowledge regarding Lyme and co-infections. So without further delay, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Lisa to give us our presentation tonight.
All right. Thank you so much, Julie. All right. Well, welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. To start, so today we're going to talk about Babesia. We're going to talk about what it looks like, how to test for it, and we're going to talk about some of the treatments that practitioners use. And then we're going to talk a little bit about Foundations Wellness Coaching. And then I'm going to talk about some things that can be blocks to recovery. And with each of the webinars, I've talked about some different ones, and we'll get into those toward the end of the webinar. So why is this important to me? Well, each of these books represents somebody who came alongside me to teach me how to move forward in health. And that's what I want to do with you. I want to be one that you can trust to come alongside you to help you. For some people, you're going to regain your health. For some, you're just going to get healthier. And I want you to see me as a trusted person that can help you in that process. All right. So nearly every chronic Lyme patient is co-infected. Co-infection of ticks with multiple bacteria, parasites, and viruses is the rule, not the exception. And listed here are some of the most common co-infections. So Bartonella, which I did the webinar on last month, Babesia, which is today, Ehrlichia, Anaplasma, Rocky Mountain Spotted Fever, Q fever, Rickettsia, and Mycoplasma. Now, each of these have their own distinct symptoms, but they also have a lot of symptoms that overlap, and treatment differs for each one. So because of the specifics of the bacteria or parasite, depending on what it is, will determine what kind of treatment is done. And so in a person who might be co-infected with several of them, treatment can be pretty complex. So Babesia persistent infection. So Babesia is one of the most common co-infections of Lyme. It is a protozoa parasite that infects people through tick bite, blood transfusion, and across the placenta. And it acts as a parasite of the red blood cells. There are over 100 species, subspecies, and genotypes, and it's found in all 50 states and many places around the world. So two of the most common causes of babesiosis are Babesia microti and Babesia duncani. So those are the two most well-known. A couple others that are getting to be more well-known, Babesia divergens and Oticolii. And Babesia organisms enter the red blood cells and mature, and then in the process, they destroy the red blood cell. And once the red blood cell is destroyed, they move to a nearby red blood cell, and the process goes on and on. And in this process, they ensure a persistent infection. And babesiosis is unique in that the symptoms can range from no symptoms at all to multi-organ failure. So it runs across the gamut. So severe illness is frequently seen in the elderly and immunocompromised and people who don't have a spleen. All right, so I just want to say something about the spleen, because you might be thinking, well, what does that matter? But because it's a parasite of the red blood cells, so the spleen fights invading germs in the blood. It controls the level of blood cells, and it also filters the blood and removes old and damaged blood cells. So if we don't have a spleen, our body is not able to remove the damaged blood cells like it normally would. Okay, so that's why the spleen is so important. So the cases that tend to be the worst are those that include those with no spleen. All right. So what are some of the symptoms? So often the early stages are an abrupt initial illness. So that might include an acute flu type illness with fatigue, fever with chills and sweating, muscle and joint pain, headaches, cough, GI discomfort. Okay, so that's early on. So as the illness progresses, a chronic infection looks very different. So you might have day and or night sweating, and it's often drenching sweat where you have to change your clothes. Air hunger with a persistent cough. So you just have a hard time catching your breath. Crushing fatigue. So remember, Babesia is a red blood cell parasite. And the red blood cells are one of the cells that move oxygen into the cells. And because the cells are destroyed, the oxygen carrying capacity is decreased, which would cause more fatigue. Global migraine headaches is also common. Blood and circulatory disorders like anemia, low platelet count, low hemoglobin, low white blood cells. Neurological symptoms are possible with depression, anxiety, and mood swings. Liver and spleen inflammation is common, and as I said earlier, it's often more severe in the elderly, in the immunocompromised, and also those without a spleen. So if someone has Babesia, they could have no symptoms if their immune system's able to stay on top of it. they could have 1, 2, 3, or they could have all of them if it's a very progressed case. So as you can see, it can be complex. All right, so next we're going to look at testing. So we're going to look at direct and indirect testing. Which testing is best for an acute infection compared to an established infection and a chronic infection. And the bottom line is no single test is 100% sensitive. And it's very important to look at the clinical picture. We don't just look at a test and say you have this. We look at the clinical picture first and then determine what to do next. So multiple Babesia species may be affecting a patient. So there are no tests that validate all of the species. An acute infection period is in the first week or so. And this is the time when Babesia may be seen on a blood smear. So direct testing is looking under a microscope at a blood smear, and there's 3 different kinds. The standard Giemsa stained smear is usually negative after about 1 to 2 weeks. The sensitivity is pretty low. And the next one is called a FISH, and that's fluorescent in situ hybridization assay. And that's at least 100 times more sensitive than the Giemsa stain smear, and it offers genus level detection and will pick up at least 2 main species and some of the others. So a third direct testing is called PCR, and it can be genus specific and species specific. So the PCR is the most advanced of the direct testing. So next we're going to look at indirect testing, and this is looking for antibodies. So serology antibodies appear later on in an infection, and so indirect testing looks for those. But some people's antibodies are 0. They don't have any. And sometimes this is due to immunocompromise. And sometimes this is because antibodies can be bound in immune complexes and serology can't pick them up. So that's serology antibody testing. So the second one is called IFA, immunofluorescent antibody testing. And this is old technology. So for each separate, you need a separate IFA for each separate species, each separate strain. So if you want to test for Microti and Duncani, you need to do 2 different tests. Okay. So the newest indirect testing is the immunoblot, and this uses recombinant antigens that are genetically engineered to be specific for the organism you're looking for. So with this, they're able to find more species than Microti and Duncani, and it's more sensitive and more specific than the IFA. So when do you use each of these? So an acute infection has a higher parasite load, so it favors direct testing. And the best to use are the FISH or the PCR. An established infection is one where the immune response has developed, so you have antibodies. And so the indirect tests that are the most useful include the IFA and the immunoblot. So as far as the chronic cases where someone is really sick, they have they're immunocompromised and also at the same time have an increased parasite load. So often they'll add back the direct testing. So using the FISH, the immunoblot, and the PCR is a good idea for these complex cases. Now it can be expensive, so if it's affordable, they can do that, but it's good to do some direct and some indirect to have the most success of having a correct positive result or a correct negative result. So what the doctors say that even if it's negative, we don't necessarily consider it negative. If it's positive, we consider it positive. If it's negative, we keep searching. Okay, because there are failures in all of the testing. All right, so let's talk a little bit about treatment. So treatment is not standardized. There is very little useful research on Babesia treatment protocols. Okay, so most of the protocols are based on the treatment of malaria. And for malaria, they combine antiparasitics and herbals. And because treatment is not standardized, treatment can run from 7 to 10 days to many months, okay? And it depends on how much knowledge the practitioner has of Babesia. So here are some treatment basics. Drug resistance has been reported. So anytime you use an antibiotic, if the microbe changes, the antibiotic becomes ineffective. And microbes are known for changing enough when you've used certain antibiotics for antiparasitics where they become resistant to it. So they encourage using combining antiparasitics, okay, and adding herbal remedies at the same time. So no one knows how long to treat Babesia. And there is no test to track progress, and there is no test for a cure. So it can be a little bit difficult. And relapses are noted. So somebody who has Babesia could be doing well for a couple years and could have a relapse, which can be very discouraging. We're here. If that happens to you, we're here for you. We can help you through that. So let's see. So when you come to see us, our goal is to get your body and your immune system into a place where it can heal itself. If you have Lyme, Bartonella, and Babesia, each one's treated differently if you're using standard American medicine, okay? So Lyme is a bacteria and it lives intracellularly and extracellularly. Bartonella is also a bacteria and it lives in the bloodstream and in your immune cells. And so it's treated a certain way. And then here we've seen about Babesia, it is a parasite, so it's treated a certain way. So if you have all three of those, you need some very complex treatment if you go to a standard American doctor. So let's think about the red cell parasite. Okay, so that's what Babesia does. And so one of the things that Babesia does to the red blood cells before it kills it, it makes it not very pliable. So when you have the, all right, let's see. You have some of your blood cells that, all right, hold on. I've lost my words for this one. Oh, you have your capillaries. Okay, your capillaries are your really tiny blood, your capillaries. Okay, so when red blood cells go through capillaries, they have to bend. And one thing that Babesia does to it, it makes it not pliable. So you get capillaries that are very sluggish. So that can end up really affecting your fingers, your toes, your hands, your feet. Okay, so that's just one thing to think about when you think about some of the symptoms of Babesia. All right. All right, so what are some of the things that we do at Foundations Wellness Coaching? So I like to call it the 3 E's: explore, educate, and empower. So when you come in for your first consultation, we have 90 minutes to do these, and we spend a lot of time exploring. So we want to know all about you. We want to have a picture of what you've gone through. What kind of symptoms are you experiencing? All right. We want to know, what have you been exposed to? What kind of vaccinations have you had? What kind of illnesses did you have as a child? Did you have any exposures that are very different from other people? Did you grow up by a farm? Did you grow up by a factory? Okay, so we do a lot of exploring because we want to see the big picture. What do things really look like? And during the consultation, we'll do education. With each consultation, we educate on different things. And everybody comes in starting at a different point. So some are at point 0, where they might not even know what a toxin is. They've never changed their diet. They've never done anything about water. And so if somebody's starting at that point, we just start with the basics. And And each time they come in, we empower them with tools so that they can successfully move forward in their health. Okay, so that's in a big picture, that's what we do here at Foundations Wellness Coaching. So when it comes specifically to Babesia, what are some of the things that we do? Well, our very most effective tool is our liposomal essential oil formula. And some of the ones that we like for Babesia that are very effective are myrrh, myrtle, nutmeg, oregano, cinnamon, garlic, and citronella. Some of the herbs specific for Babesia are Alcornia cordifolia and Artemisia. And then some herbs that we like to use that are also effective for Lyme and Bartonella include Cryptolepis, Chinese skullcap, artemisinin, and black walnut hull. Something I want to say about essential oils, we can make a formula that is effective for Lyme, Bartonella, and Babesia because many of the oils are effective for all three, especially when we include oregano, cinnamon, and garlic, and citronella. And so if we have somebody who is very complex and they're not moving forward like we would like them to or like they would like to, then we begin to add herbal remedies. And what we like about herbs and also essential oils is that the microbes don't grow resistant to them. So from one bottle to the next of the same oil, they're never exactly the same. And it's the same with herbs. They're different depending on the growing conditions. How much rain did that herb have? How much sun did it have? What nutrients are in the soil? So the microbes cannot become resistant to something that changes, that is always changing. So that's one of the things we really love about using essential oils and using herbal remedies. All right, so what kind of things can block recovery? So in my first webinar, I talked about glyphosate, BPA plastic, mold, and the gut microbiome. In the second webinar, I talked about PFAs, which are considered forever chemicals, phthalates, and heavy metals. And today I'm going to talk about nutrition basics, water, stress, and EMF/Wi-Fi. So why do we talk about things that block recovery? Well, one of the things that sets us apart is that we always address toxins with every single person that comes in here, with everybody that works here. Like our goal is to reduce the toxins coming in and increase the toxins leaving our body. Because what we've learned is that a body that is low on toxins is a body that has a much healthier immune system. So our goal is to help your immune system get healthier. If you're under a health crisis, your immune system's under attack, and toxins are part of that reason. So thus we always address toxins and what things can block recovery with each client. All right, so some nutrition basics. So we're going to talk about whole foods over processed foods, GMO versus not GMO, organic versus non-organic, fermented food, salt, and a high protein diet. So first of all, whole foods. The best diet you can have includes foods that you can read the name of: apple, salmon, chicken, tomato, whatever it is, foods, whole foods that you get all the nutrients from. And if I can say this, you eat whole foods that are in season. So if it's produce, try to choose produce that's in season rather than something that came half a world away, okay? Now, what makes processed foods so bad? Well, processed foods are shelf stable because chemicals are added that kill any microbes that are living in the food, okay? So when they do that, when we eat food that contains those chemicals, it also kills the microbes that live in our gut. So each time we eat them, some damage is happening to our bodies, okay? Many processed foods also contain taste-altering chemicals. And these are deliberately added and can be toxic. Okay, so they affect your taste. They give you a different perception of taste. Okay, now as you start consuming natural foods, sometimes you might think they don't have that much flavor. But when you start eating those foods and less processed foods, your taste comes alive. Okay. As you have fewer nutrition deficiencies, your sense of taste comes alive. So you end up realizing that whole foods actually have fantastic flavor. And when you buy the best quality you can, it tastes even better. All right, so GMO versus non-GMO. So I'm going to describe two different kinds of GMO foods. And one is genetically modified to withstand Roundup, which has the main ingredient as glyphosate. Okay, so these plants don't die when they're doused with glyphosate. That means that when they're brought to market, they are filled with glyphosate. And if you want to learn more about glyphosate, Dr. Stephanie Seneff, she wrote a book called Toxic Legacy, which is a good book, but she also has YouTube videos. And these videos are excellent in learning all about glyphosate, very easy to understand for anybody. So I would encourage you to watch those if you haven't done a lot of your own research on glyphosate. So another GMO crop it's genetically modified to kill the microbiome of a certain caterpillar. And the chemicals that do that killing are in the food. And when we ingest that food, it also hurts our gut microbiome. So there's some similarities to a caterpillar microbiome and our microbiome. Okay, so GMO crops either have a lot of glyphosate, a lot of Roundup, or they have chemicals that hurt our microbiome. So either way, our microbiome is being affected, and glyphosate can affect every area of our body. Okay, so GMO, non-GMO. So unfortunately, purchasing non-GM food isn't enough. So according to Dr. Stephanie Seneff, and they use Roundup as a desiccant at the end of the season to speed up the drying process. So these are non-GMO crops being sprayed as a convenience, okay? They are labeled non-GMO, but they're still covered with glyphosate. The most common crops being sprayed are wheat, oats, and beans, and then some others include barley, rye, canola, safflower, sunflower, linseed, and flax. And a lot of these are used in vegetable oil production. And if you haven't done any research on good fats, some of these oils that are being sprayed with glyphosate are ones that are highly processed and not good for us anyway. So we can keep that in mind. Okay, so GMO, non-GMO, neither one of them ensures healthy food. So let's look at organic versus non-organic. So one of the things, organic means a lot of things, but one thing that it means is that there's no synthetic fertilizers or pesticides in it. All right. And in order to find, if you want to know, if you can't afford it, okay, if you say organic costs too much, I just can't afford it. The Environmental Working Group, which is a nonprofit organization that it tests food, it tests water, it tests cleaning products, it tests personal care products, okay? They made a list called the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen. I have it right here, okay? This is their list. And the Clean 15 is a list of produce that is grown the cleanest and has the least amount of pesticide, herbicide residue. The Dirty Dozen is a list of produce that has the most residue. Okay, so for instance, strawberries are number one. Well, they're like sponges. So if things are sprayed on them, it's just going to be filled with them. And so a number of the foods are like that, where it's hard for that particular fruit or vegetable to keep the glyphosate out. All right, so Dirty Dozen. So this is you can download it from the site. And it's an easy thing to keep in your purse. So if you have to choose organic, non-organic, purchase the clean ones, non-organic, and save the organic for the ones that are on the Dirty Dozen. And something I just want to encourage you is to vote with your dollars. That's the only way that the price of organic food will come down. Okay, I heard so just some interviews of farmers, and farmers spend a lot of money to produce clean food, and they don't do it to get rich. I've never met a rich farmer who has organic food. Now, there may be a lot of them, but I haven't met them. They work hard and they spend a lot of money to give us clean food, whether it's produce, whether it's meat. So I encourage you, as much as you can, support the farmers by purchasing organic when you can. So next let's talk about fermented foods. All right, so a healthy gut microbiome has a lot of diversity in the population of microbes, and eating fermented foods is the best way to increase that diversity. And as we talked about before, a very large portion of your immune system is in your gut. So as you are diversifying your gut microbiome, you're giving your body what it needs to nourish and protect your immune system. Okay, so you're really helping your body. So some of the things we encourage is for you to make your own fermented foods. All right, so fermented vegetables. You can also make your own yogurt. You can buy yogurt too, but you can, it's real easy to make. You can make kefir. All you need is kefir grains and milk to make your own kefir. You can also drink kombucha. So each of these can add to the diversity of your microbiome. And when you do that, you make your whole body healthier. All right, so let's talk about salt. I'm just going to say just a few things. Salt is a real easy thing to change. If you haven't, I encourage you to purchase unrefined salts. These are salts that have vital minerals still intact. When you buy just the white table salt, it's highly processed so it has sodium chloride in it, but all the other minerals have been processed away. But we need those minerals. Okay, so it's not hard to find. Some of them I find at the grocery store, but some I usually get on Amazon or from their specific website. So some of the ones that I like are Redmond Real Salt, Selena Naturally Celtic Sea Salt, and Baja Gold Mineral Sea Salt. I have each of these at home. Plus, I have a few other. I'm kind of a salt junkie, mostly because when I hear of a good salt, I usually purchase it. I love to cook, so I like to experiment with some different salts. But you can use them the same way you do as table salt, but you're getting more nutrients at the same time. All right, so what is the best kind of diet if you're doing a detox? Well, what we have learned is that a high protein diet is the best. So according to the Price Pottinger Journal of Health and Healing, for complete detoxification to occur, a two-phase process must take place that requires amino acids from dietary protein. So when your liver has two phases of detoxification, okay? So the first phase requires vitamin B complex, vitamin A, magnesium, glutamine, or magnesium and the antioxidants, vitamin C, vitamin E, carotenoids, selenium, and zinc. All right. So phase 2 requires different things. It requires sulfur. It requires amino acids like glycine, glutamine, cysteine, methionine, and taurine. And good sources for these amino acids are high quality proteins in the diet. So if you are eating a whole foods diet, this gives you what you need for phase 1 and phase 2 detoxification. If you're eating processed foods, it's hard to say what you're getting. And if you're eating processed foods and your body is not detoxing well, toxins are going to build up and build up and build up. And that's what we want to avoid. Okay, so eating whole foods can give you what you need for full body detoxification. And so remember, you need a good amount of protein in your diet for detox. All right, water. I want to say that if you can only change one thing and you're drinking tap water, change your water. Okay? Every cell in our body requires it. A well hydrated body is one that is healthier than one that is not hydrated. Okay, so let's talk about tap water. What's wrong with it? First of all, tap water is filled with numerous chemicals that are harmful to our health. So some of the added chemicals that are added purposefully are like chlorine and fluoride. Other things get into the water from just the environment around it. So you have a smokestack and you have things spewing out. Those chemicals get to the ground and get into our water. If the farms, when it rains, the chemicals on farms get into our water. Okay, there's lots and lots of ways that chemicals get into our water. So fluoride and chlorine, just to name two chemicals, they take the place of iodine in the water, or they take the place of iodine in our bodies. Okay, so if you're drinking tap water and getting a lot of chlorine and fluoride, you're not getting the iodine, your cells are not getting the iodine that it needs, and you may end up having iodine deficiency, which can cause a lot of different problems. So if that was the only reason you changed from drinking tap water, great. But there's many, many other reasons to stop drinking tap water. So what's the next best? So now we have bottled water. So is bottled water good or bad? Well, bottled water, if it's in plastic bottles, is not a good replacement. Okay, so plastic is known as an endocrine disruptor. And when water is in plastic, it leaches the plastic into the water we drink. Okay, so an endocrine disruptor is something that damages the organs and glands that produce our hormones, and that leads to dysregulation in the body. So if we're drinking a lot of bottled water, we are doing some harmful things to our hormones. Okay, so our hormones will not be healthy to regulate our body. So bottled water, so if you're gonna drink something from a bottle, have it be stainless steel or glass, okay? So next we have filtered water. All right, so one thing I want you to remember is you get what you pay for. So if you buy just the cheapest water filter in the store, I'm not sure what all it's filtering out. Now, one way you can find out, so if a water filter is filtering a lot, they're going to brag about it on their website. Okay, so if you want to know what your filter is filtering out, whether it is a pitcher, whether it is your refrigerator filter, you can look up on their website to see what it's filtering out. If there's no list of what it's filtering out, it's probably not filtering out enough. Okay, so a couple recommendations that we have, if you need a place to start, you've been drinking tap water or bottled water and you don't want to make a big investment, a good place to start is with a pitcher that is called a zero water pitcher. And it was rated the best water pitcher by the Environmental Working Group. And that is a good option. It's not expensive. You do have to change the filters, but it comes with a tester, and so you can test it, and you would know. And we have one at home. And when it's time to change the filter, the water starts to taste a little citrusy. So you can tell. I think, oh, did I add lemon to the water? No, I didn't. Okay, time to change the filter, and then I change it. So that's a good option that doesn't cost a lot. Another option, if you're able to make an investment in your water, is a company called Pure Effect Advanced Filtration. And we recommend the Ultra UC Disinfect that removes microorganisms of viruses, bacteria, and parasites. It also removes fluoride, radiation, heavy metals, chemicals, and nanoplastic. And then at the end, it revitalizes the water. So this is the only one that I know of that removes nanoplastics, and nanoplastics are just becoming a lot more common. Okay, plastic does not biodegrade, it just breaks down in smaller and smaller and smaller pieces. And we're finding it in people's bodies because when you drink water in a plastic water bottle, or you put anything hot in plastic, it's leached into the food or water. And it gets into our bodies. So because plastic is so disruptive, we don't want to use that. So I was pretty excited when I saw that takes out nanoplastic. So I put websites to these on one of the pages at the end on a resource page. All right. So if I mention a company, I try to put not a link, but just the website on the resource page. All right. So every cell in our body needs to be well hydrated. So you want to drink the purest water you can. With that, we can flush out toxins a lot easier. All right, next I want to talk a little bit about stress. So the autonomic nervous system is made up of the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. And the sympathetic nervous system regulates our fight and flight response to our environment. And when somebody is in a lot of stress, the sympathetic nervous system takes over. Now, the parasympathetic nervous system supports health and healing. It supports growth, and it supports restoration. It helps return our bodies to a place of balance after a stressful situation. So what's wrong with stress? What's wrong? There's some people who live in chronic stress. Okay, what's the dangers in that? Well, first of all, stress can come from positive and negative events. Think about a vacation. When I was growing up, when I was under stress, I would get a migraine headache, and I would get them when I would be on vacation. And it was because I was so excited about the vacation that just overloaded my body, and that my stress response was a migraine headache. So it doesn't have to be that something bad's happening. Think about a wedding. Weddings are fantastic, but they also can be pretty stressful. So stress can be healthy in the short term, but long term, with all the things that your body does under stress or doesn't do under stress, it can be destructive long term. Your immune system and your digestion, they slow down a lot during stress, and healing and repairing slow down also. So sleep and your ability to work can be majorly disrupted when you're under stress. So let's talk about some things. How can we de-stress? So on the right-hand side, I have a handful of things that cost very little in order to de-stress. They can make a big deal because we want to de-stress every single day. We don't want to go to bed. The nighttime hours are the hours where our body does a lot of healing and our brain does a lot of things with our memory. So we want all those hours to count. Okay. So the first one is to meditate or pray. That's an easy thing to do. And if you're not good at that, practice makes perfect. Another suggestion is to go for a walk outside. We've had fantastic weather the last couple of days, and a walk outside would have just been wonderful. How about dance? Another thing is to connect with a friend or loved one. Go ride a bike. Go out into the sun for 10 minutes and see how healing that can be. Take an Epsom salt bath. Those are filled with magnesium and can just bring your stress level down. Sweat in a sauna, or practice some deep breathing. Deep breathing can balance things in your body in a really, really healing way. So it's really important to identify the stressors in your life because of the negative impact that chronic stress has. So each day, there's a lot of stress we can't help, but we can help how we act toward the stress, okay? And how much we want to hang on to things. So sometimes we just have to let go. and practice some of these other things to bring our stress level down every day. All right, so I'm just gonna touch on EMF. I have spent enough time here. I don't want to take a lot more of your time. But so as you can see on this picture, there's a lot of sources of electromagnetic waves that hit our body. And these are waves that are not natural. So they're unnatural waves that affect our bodies in all different ways. Ways they affect me will be different than the ways they affect you. And I was listening to a podcast on this, and people with high heavy metals tend to be very affected by these waves, these unnatural waves. I listed 2 different companies, EH Trust, which is an environmental health trust, and Tech Wellness. And so Environmental Health Trust is a nonprofit organization that carries out cutting edge research on environmental health hazards. And they have many, many research articles on the danger. So if you want to be educated and say, why does it even matter? These would be 2 really good websites to go to. And Tech Wellness is owned by August Bryce, and she was on a homegrown podcast. And if you're not familiar with that, it's a really excellent podcast, just talking about, you name it, about health, they're talking about it. And it never matters how much I know about that subject, I always learn a lot. So she was on the homegrown podcast. And Tech Wellness, she started that to empower us to live healthier lives with digital technology. So she is very sensitive to EMF radiation. And so she started this to help us know how to use it sensibly. And a couple different things that, and not just her, that are recommended is to turn your Wi-Fi off at night. And this can be very healing for our bodies, because the EMF radiation really affects our bodies. It causes parasites to replicate faster, and mold. We don't want either of those replicating faster, but EMF causes them. Anytime there's a disruption, they procreate even more. All right, so another thing is to not sleep with your phone next to your bed. When I slept with my phone next to my bed, and I have my phone on because I have family, and if there's an emergency at night, I want to be available. So I don't have it on airplane mode, but I've solved that problem. So when I had it next to my bed, I used to turn over at night about every 10 minutes, all night long. It was terrible. I was hardly sleeping. And when I learned how disruptive that could be to sleep, I moved my phone out of my room. All of a sudden, I wasn't turning over all the time, and my sleep has changed. So you can put your phone in a Faraday bag if you don't want to turn it off. A Faraday bag can protect you from the radiation, or you just put it outside of your door. And I still have my volume on, so if I get a phone call at night, I can still hear it. It's just not next to me, exposing me to that radiation. So what do I want you to take away from this? I just want you to begin being educated. If you aren't already educated, I want you to begin being educated of what things can block recovery or just moving forward in your health. Okay. So at Foundations Wellness Coaching, we said explore, educate, and empower. That's a big part of our education. And does that mean I want you to change everything at once? Not at all. Changes take time, and that's okay. I encourage you to make one change at a time. One step forward is better than no steps forward. And I've been making changes for many years. There's still a lot of things I need to do, and it's okay. I have grace on myself. When I learn of a new thing, when I'm able, I make that change, and I just do that pretty consistently, one at a time. You can't afford to change everything out at once, so you do things one at a time. So Another thing I want you to go home with is we are here for you. If you're having a health crisis of any kind, if you think you might have Lyme, Bartonella, or Babesia, we're here for you. We want to come alongside you and help you in your health journey. The next slide is references. All right. And you can take a look at those. And then this next page are resources. So I mentioned the Homegrown podcast, and these are just a few of that included things that I talked about today. And then at the bottom, I have some of the websites of different products we like or organizations that we like. And I want to hand this over to Julie. I am going to be looking at the questions, and I will answer some of those questions for you.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. That was wonderful. While Lisa, she's just going to take a few moments. She's going to kind of read through some questions. Feel free to just type into the chat directly. She'll just read through those. But while she takes some time for that, I just want to highlight a few things about Foundations Wellness. Actually, Lisa, can you switch to the next slide? I think she might be a little. Is that okay?
Okay.
Yeah. So there's Lisa's lovely picture. Um, I just wanted to say a little bit about Foundations. So I started as a client before I started working here. And I think I've been here for at least 4 or 5 years now. But this office is so passionate about helping our clients get to the root cause of illness, and that was something that stood out to me a lot when I first started coming here as a client. It's not the type of thing where you're going to come in and they just throw medications at you and say, okay, here, try this, bye bye. They really do their research. They really understand the science behind this, and some really difficult things, right? Lyme, it can be difficult. It just can. But they really do their research and they really like to get to the root of that. So, really getting to that root for a plethora of health concerns to regain health. Our team really understands those complexities, like I said, about Lyme and co-infections and other autoimmune conditions. And if you are interested in working specifically with Lisa, feel free to call our office to schedule an appointment. You'll probably get myself or Dawn, and we can get you scheduled with that. And then if you can go back, well, that's our phone number right there, 513-301-7406. You can book on our website. And if you can go back, Lisa, she's running slides. We are doing a promo for the month of February. For the month of February, we are running a promotion for $50 off our Jumpstart Detox program. In this Jumpstart program, that includes the 60-minute coaching consultation with Lisa. You will get a detox Zyto scan that will help you to kind of uncover some of those toxins that she talked about. So specifically like environmental toxins and things like that. You will also get a custom written detox wellness plan just for you, specifically kind of based off of loosely what Zyto's saying and then what your symptoms are and what you're kind of talking about. This package also includes 3 detox foot bath sessions, which that's a whole other thing I guess I could let you explain, Lisa, but the Ion Cleanse by AMD is the foot bath that we use, and that is a practitioner-grade foot bath. It's not the cheapo one that you see on Amazon for $100. These are $3,000 pieces of equipment that we use in our office to really help start opening those detox pathways to eliminate the heavy metals and those environmental toxins. So normally it's $225 for all of this, but we are doing a special promo for $50 off, so that makes it $175. So you'll get all of that information also in an email that is going to go out, as well as resources and a link, I believe, to this video. And again, if you check our, I believe, Facebook and YouTube, there should be also links to the other 2, part 1 and 2 of this series of webinar. So I think that's all I have to say. But I am going to just kind of wrap it up here. I'm going to hand it back to Lisa. and she's going to kind of check out some questions, any questions.
All right. So one question I have is, are there certain areas of the country that have higher rates of Babesia? Anywhere where there's ticks, there can be Babesia. All right. We know that they can come from deer and white mice, which do not stay in one state. There's not a wall that doesn't let them go to the next state. So, and with like, we're a global people. So some of the ones that were found here are found elsewhere in the world and vice versa because of how we travel. And that's the same with ticks. It's the same with the animals that carry the ticks. So there's not any one area. So I've had clients come in and their doctors have said, oh, there's no Lyme in Ohio. And I think, how could they even say that? With how we know birds move, like things move, things don't stop at one state. So Babesia has been found in every state of our country. So it's all there, even in Alaska, it's been found. Another question is, what's the biggest supplement you've seen that helps with Babesia? And that's definitely our liposomal essential oil formulas. And there's times when somebody who has Babesia has a really complex case and they need more support than that. And so that's when we add something like the cryptolepis. We have other herbs that we can add also, but we just start one at a time and see how that helps them. So those are my only two questions. I just want to thank you guys for joining me tonight. Remember, you can go to our YouTube channel, which is Foundations Wellness Coaching, and that's where a lot of these videos are. I did a Tick Bite 101 last year. And so if you want to know how to protect yourself from a tick, that's a great webinar to look at. We also did, Teresa, Jen, and I did a webinar on the liposomal essential oil formulas. So if you want to know what's so good about those, well, we did a whole webinar on those. So, and that's packed with information, and you could find that on the Foundations Wellness Coaching page of YouTube. It also has lots of other different videos. So lots of good educational material there. Again, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And remember, we want to come and stand beside you and help you on your journey to wholeness and wellness. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.